Hey everyone, it's Leela from Miss Kiss Creations. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to bring it all the way back to the basics and we're going to go ahead and go over how to mix epoxy. I get a lot of messages on my Facebook page asking why my epoxy or why my tumbler hasn't dried correctly, or it's still sticky and it's been sitting for 24 hours or more, and I just want to go ahead and just make this basic video to help everyone who's been sending me a message, and hopefully this will help you in the future. So before I go over how to actually mix the epoxy, I just want to go over a couple things that I've learned and read and just picked up along the way that I think everyone should know before handling or dealing with epoxy. First things first is always wear gloves. Make sure your skin and your hands are protected. This is very, very important. If the unmixed epoxy does touch your skin, sometimes people get rashes from it. Sometimes they break out, sometimes their skin starts burning, so make sure you are protecting your hands. I do have these gloves here. I got them from Walmart and CVS or Walgreens. I know you can get them on Amazon as well. So the brand I have right now is the CVS brand. I do use the nitrile exam gloves. I do not use latex gloves for epoxy. I actually don't think latex glove is approved for epoxy, but I might be wrong with that. But I always have used this brand. I love CVS brand, but you can also get them at Walmart, Walgreens, Amazon, places like that. Also, I know a lot of people who handle epoxy, they actually do wear goggles, eye goggles, and they also wear a respiratory mask. I will say I've been handling epoxy for about a year now, and I just ordered a respiratory mask on Amazon. All you do is type in respiratory mask on Amazon, and there's hundreds of them that pop up. They start from $20, and I think they range from about $200 to $250. I think mine was $29.99 or $39.99. Some people don't wear masks. Like I said, I've been handling epoxy for a year, and I just bought the mask, so it is up to you. I just want to be safe because I know I'm going to be doing this for a long time, and over time this might affect my body. So I spend $30 in glitter every week, so why not spend $30 on a respiratory mask one time? So look into that. If you do get irritated with skin, I know a lot of different brands affect people differently. Some people's eyes start burning. This stuff is chemicals, so it's there's a lot of chemicals in here, and a lot of people actually are they become allergic to this, or they are allergic to this. So make sure you are using this safely, and you are protecting your skin, your lungs, your eyes, your entire body while handling epoxy. Also, make sure you are in a well-ventilated place or room. I know a lot of people work in their garages. They have shops and they leave their windows open. I have 3 or 4 fans typically going. I don't have them on while I'm making my YouTube tutorials, but I do have fans, and then I have my window open, and then I have my back door open with a fan blowing out of the back door. So that is very important. There's a lot of fumes with dealing with epoxy, so make sure you're taking care of yourself, because if you do it once or twice, that's fine, but over time, if you're doing this for years and years, it might affect your body. One more thing, make sure you are wearing old clothes or clothes that you do not care about, because if epoxy does get on your shirt and it is mixed, it's very, very hard to get it out, and it dries like cement. So if you are wearing an outfit you care about, don't wear it. Change and just put on a nightgown or old shirt or whatever you have. All right, so the epoxy that I use, it's Amazing Clear Cast. I do use a 2-part epoxy, part A and part B. You mix this 1-to-1 ratio, so you mix 2 even parts of these. I do not buy these on Amazon. I don't know the sellers on Amazon. I go to the website itself. I will be posting the link to the website in the description of the video. So so make sure you do go to the website if you do purchase these. Again, if you purchase them on Amazon or eBay, I don't know if it's the real deal. So I don't really trust them unless it comes from the factory itself. You do notice that the side B is yellow and side A is white. This is with all epoxy. I've actually had this on my shelf for about a year now. I use this just for tutorials. I now use the gallon size, and you can have that option on the website. I use the gallon size pumps. It won't fit in the video though. Any type of epoxy, any brand that is not mixed correctly will yellow. So this B side is yellow, but when mixed properly with side A, it's not going to turn yellow. So if you are working with molds or tumblers or anything, do not worry about your cups and your molds and your keychains turning yellow over time. The only reason why any epoxy will turn yellow if it's not mixed properly. You're going to need measuring cups. I have these 1 ounce measuring cups that I purchased from Amazon. I'll also post that in the description below. I'll have that link there. I have 2. I do side A, side B. I also have my popsicle sticks. I do recommend using the bigger ones. I personally like the bigger ones, but if you have the regular size popsicle sticks, that is okay. And then I have my Dixie cup. I use a 3 ounce Dixie cup. If I'm doing a batch of tumblers and I need more than 3 ounces, then I'll have my 5 ounce Dixie cups. And then while mixing the epoxy, you're gonna notice some bubbles in your epoxy. A lot of people use heat guns or torches. I personally use heat guns. This is a Wagner brand. I did purchase this from Lowe's. It was about $20 to $25. You can tell it is my craft heat gun. There's glitter and epoxy stuck all over here. So you do want to have this on hand or some type of heat to get the bubbles out of the epoxy. All brands of epoxy do create bubbles, and it depends on how you mix them and how slowly you mix them on how many bubbles you do get. Like I said, I buy the gallon size epoxy, so I actually have a gallon of part A and part B, and then I use my pump to pump each side out. I went ahead and I pumped out 2 even amounts of part A and part B. Again, this is very, very important that you are pumping out 2 even amounts. You are not weighing this, but you are measuring this out. So I did 1 tablespoon and 1 tablespoon of part A, 1 tablespoon of part B. Whenever you are pumping or if you're squeezing into the cups, you're going to notice that part A is a thicker consistency and part B comes out a lot quicker and it's a lot thinner than part A. So one thing that I do is kind of a money saving tip is I label my little cups. I label part A and part B, and if I'm doing multiple tumblers, I'll reuse these cups so I won't throw this away. If I'm doing 4 or 5 tumblers back to back and I don't want to make one big batch, I'll just label the cups and then I'll just keep reusing the measuring cup so I don't have to waste all of my cups in one day. Now that I have both of my part A and part B inside of my measuring cups, I'm going to transfer it in a bigger cup. Now, I know that both of these can fit into 1 cup, but I want it to be mixed as well as possible, so I always transfer it into a clean cup, even if I'm making small batches. So I always pour in part B first. Part B is the thinner one. So I make sure I pour that one in my Dixie cup first, and then I take my I take my popsicle stick and I just scrape the inside of the cup, and I make sure I'm getting every single drop of the epoxy out of that tiny cup. And like I said, part B is thinner and it runs out quicker than part A. So I always pour my part B first because it is lighter, and I pour my part A second because it's a heavier consistency and it drops inside of part B. So this is my part A. I'm just going to pour into my part B. You see it's a lot heavier. It takes a lot longer to pour. And then I'm going to take my popsicle stick and then do the same and make sure I'm getting every bit of epoxy out of the measuring cup. And then once it's in the measuring cup, or once it's in the Dixie cup, all I'm going to do is I'm going to stir. So right now, if you see, you can see the epoxy is stringy. So you do not want that epoxy to be stringy. Don't worry about any bubbles right now. You just do not want to have that epoxy stringy. So if it's stringy, it is not going to cure at all. So you're just going to stick your popsicle stick inside the tumbler and you're just going to stir. Now, I'm not too crazy about stirring really, really slow. I know a lot of tutorials or a lot of people like to stir really slow. But I found that even if I stir slow or fast, I mean, I'm not drilling a hole in my cup, but I know a lot of people stir a lot slower than me. It doesn't make a difference with the bubbles. So right now, you're gonna see it's not gonna be clear, so it's gonna be foggy in your cup. And I don't like to pick up my my popsicle stick outside of my cup. I always keep it inside my cup as much as possible. So I keep stirring and I make sure I'm getting the outside of the tumbler, or I should say the wall of the Dixie cup. I'm sorry. I'm getting the wall of Dixie cup and I'm making sure that it is completely stirred. I know if you are new at this, I know the base time to stir epoxy is at least 3 minutes. So when I first started, what I did was I went ahead and I listened to music and I just played one song at 2.5, 3 minutes long, and I made sure I stirred it the entire time because I was not sure if I stirred my epoxy properly or not. So every single time I did it throughout an entire song and it worked. So if you are unsure, play some music and stir away. So now my epoxy is getting a little bit more clear. I'm going to keep stirring it, and you want to stir it until it is completely clear, and you want to make sure there's no more stringiness inside your epoxy. Whenever y'all do this in person, you're going to look inside your cup and you're going to be able to see the stringiness in there, and then you're going to see that it's going to disappear. So if my camera isn't picking this up, I'm sorry, but in person you'll understand what's going on. Trust me. So you're going to see some bubbles, and don't freak out. It's okay if you see bubbles. And like I said, a lot of people message me on Facebook asking me why their tumblers are not dried properly. They've let it spin on the turner for 12 hours and it's still sticky. It's because they're not mixing their epoxy properly. It's very, very important to have patience on this process, because I'd rather waste all these materials by make sure you put in a new cup, getting the big popsicle sticks, taking my time doing this, than wasting an entire tumbler and my time. Because once the epoxy is not mixed properly, there's no going back. You have to strip that tumbler. So keep in mind, this is a very, very important step. So it looks like my epoxy is clear. Now, if you want to make sure that your epoxy is completely mixed, what I do, if I have 3 ounces of epoxy, I typically do this, but with this amount, I really don't. So if I have an entire cup of epoxy, I always do this process. I take a new cup of my Dixie cup and I pour my batch into a brand new cup, and that mixes it more for me. So it just mixes it a little more than what maybe I would have. So it's like it's not nothing necessary you have to do, but if you're still starting out and you're still new or unsure and you can afford to waste another Dixie cup like I just did, go ahead and do it. Because like I said, I'd rather waste 1 Dixie cup than waste my entire time and a tumbler and then stripping it. So I'd rather do this the hard way and the patient way than having to redo an entire tumbler. So you see that my epoxy is clear. There's no stringiness to it. There's no fogginess to it. It's completely clear. I can see my popsicle stick. Now, if you notice, there are some bubbles, and like I mentioned before, you are going to get bubbles. It is impossible not to get bubbles inside of your epoxy. It's okay. This is when the heat gun comes in hand, or the torch. But I use my Wagner heat gun and I put it on high, and all I do is sometimes there's glitter inside of this heat gun, so I always tap it off and I make sure glitter falls out of it. And then all I do is I put it inside my Dixie cup and I let it sit on inside of my Dixie cup for about 3 seconds or 5 seconds. I make sure I don't leave it in there too long because I don't want to burn the epoxy. And the way you can tell if you burn epoxy, if you start smelling it. And that's it. You're gonna feel the epoxy getting a little thinner, and that's what you want to feel, and that's how I like to apply it to my tumblers. Now make sure whenever you apply this to your tumbler, you're putting it on your tumbler and then you're hitting it with the heat gun as well. So that that does make a difference. And you can see there's hardly any bubbles inside of this. So again, this process of this long process of mixing epoxy is very, very important. If you do not mix your epoxy properly, your tumbler will not cure, and it will be a waste of time and a waste of materials. I hope this video helped you out. If it did, please be sure to like it and subscribe to my channel for more crafts and tumblers. And I will see y'all next time. Thank you.